Matt, did you know video games are now for girls?
This is a trick question, isn't it?
Welcome to What the Washington, a historical, social, and political tour of the weirdest state in the nation. I'm Mikayla.
And I'm Matt.
And today we're talking about HeR Interactive. Matt, what do you know about HeR Interactive?
I only know what you've shown and told me in the last few weeks. So nothing.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to tell you about it, so don't worry about it. So, we'll start at the beginning of the company, and then we'll transition into perhaps my favorite part. I think everybody's favorite part, really the only part, in some ways, of HeR Interactive, which is the Nancy Drew games.
Absolutely not a sponsored video.
If they want to,
sponsored
send me all their games for free.
Podcast. But, Mikayla's doing this for the love. Just for the love of the game.
Yeah, and then we're also going to go through we're going to run through the Danger on Deception Island game, which was one that I played throughout my childhood, and it's set off of Washington on Deception Island, even though it's more like a fictionalized version of Deception Island.
For sure.
So we'll also briefly talk about Deception Island itself,
that was
what parts are true.
That game had a very interesting portrayal of the San Juans and Whidbey Island, in my opinion.
I think
the North Sound.
I think it was fair enough. I feel like it's pretty accurate in some ways, actually.
That's why it's more closer to life than I actually realized it was going to be when I played it. So I can't wait to dive in.
Me and Matt, in preparation for this, played through Danger on Deception Island, which for me, I think is my third complete playthrough, because as a kid, I did not play through all of it because I could never win, and I didn't know what walkthroughs were, back then. HeR Interactive is a video game company based in Bellevue.
We love it.
The original Tuck location. And they began in 1995.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're originals. And they were a division of American Laser Games.
Okay.
And then they later spun off to be independent, and they ended up being so successful that they actually bought their parent company, American Laser Games.
The master has become the student, and the student has become the master.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, the reason it's called HeR is video games. I think the original name was Video Games for Her. I might mention that at some point, but so the intention was gamers. The intention was to get girls interested in video games. So they're best known, like I said, for creating Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew games are point-and-click adventure mystery games, and they're typically non-linear. And then their first game was a full-motion video dating simulator.
Whoa.
Called Mackenzie & Co.
Whoa.
And
we're getting into Japanese game territory.
No, so FMV video games are really common in the 90s. They're less common now, although there has been a few horror games. We played through, we didn't play through it. We watched people play through at Dead of Night.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an FMV.
Yeah. There's something off about those games, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they use a fixed graphic background, but then they have actors in the frame of them, video captured actors, and it's just there's just something off.
I like them.
It kind of reminds me of when they used to portray what the internet was going to be like, and it's you're walking on the Sonic the Hedgehog game background.
The gateway default
the cow
screensaver.
Right, with the blue field in the back. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
So you would think Mackenzie is the name of a character. It's not. It's the name of their car. So it's
I did not expect that,
Yeah,
actually.
their car is a geo tracker. They've just bought it. Me and Matt watched a few intro videos of this game, like someone playing through it. I've never heard of this game before this researching for this episode. So
This is
it
all
didn't seem
new.
super replayable. You know, it seemed pretty basic, but like as a teen girl and or really like a preteen in the 90s, you probably liked it.
It's kind of weird the fact that they just straight up were like, "Oh, girls won't like fun games like Sonic the Hedgehog. They're gonna like
Yeah,
dating
girly games.
sims."
So, Mackenzie is the name of the car, which is an acronym that stands for marvelous, cool, kinetic movement, everlasting friendship, nonconformist, zany, ingenious, and empowered.
That's the most 90s military talk style acronym I've ever heard, where it's like radical, kinetic.
Yeah, which is it's a very long thing.
It's
to be an
way too
acronym.
long.
Yeah. So moving on to like really what everybody's here for. HeR released its first Nancy Drew game, Secrets Can Kill, in 1998.
Wow.
So these games have been around for a
That's like
while.
I think that's as old as StarCraft, the original StarCraft, which that was a good year for games.
So they've now developed a total of 33 main series Nancy Drew games
Wow.
and a remaster of the first game because it's like unplayable. The first two games are pretty much unplayable on any modern computer.
Right, because the
So
compatibility.
they did remaster the first game. There's hope that they'll remaster the second game, though I don't know if that's going to ever happen. We'll see. I mean, I would like to play the second game again, but
That sounds so brutal that they're just like, oh, we may do it. We may
yeah.
not.
And some of these games, like I play them, they are hard on certain systems to play correctly, and you sometimes have to do some download patches to.
I was
get
gonna
it to
say
even
sometimes
work.
you have to rely on the community. There are a
lot of
lot
it.
of older PC games that you have to rely on the community to even like patch it to make sure that it runs on
Right.
Windows.
And before they had it where you could only buy these games from HeR Interactive's website.
What?
Yeah, and then it was really bad.
That's brutal.
They had it, and so they would give you a download, but then it was also a limited download, so you could only download it like once or twice. And they didn't keep it in like a library for you.
Wow.
It was like they gave you a
That's
download
on
link.
you.
Yeah, it was not.
So if your computer died, you just were never gonna play this.
You have to
game
rebuy
again.
the game basically, which is an awful business strategy,
That's
and I
how
think
they
they
make their
realized that
money.
because now everything's on Steam.
Yeah, I mean cloud computing completely changed games.
Yeah,
for
with the
sure.
exception of the second game, which again is
But
like
they didn't give CDs
unplayable.
out though.
No, they did.
Oh, it was behind the CD
In the
key,
90s
right?
and the early 2000s, they had CDs. I'm talking about like if you wanted to play it in like 2014, you had to buy it through HeR Interactive.
Oh, so you couldn't just. Oh, that's brutal. You like. I know that some games, they will have the CDs, right? Like you put your CD. Oh, if you have
yeah,
the CD,
I have CDs.
or you go to the game's website. If it's like an old edition of the game, they'll have like the old registration code reader, and then if you have a code that they clearly had allowed, then you can use the game. That's brutal.
No, that's how the Sims are.
Yeah, Sims exactly. Sims SimCity 4 is like that as well.
There's very few video games that are still sold in stores
I miss that
in
though.
boxes. I think the Sims is like pretty much the only one.
I don't want to know your opinion. Do you miss that? Do you miss like
I
physically
like
buying
browsing like I used to, but it's like the Blockbuster thing. Like, I don't know how much good would be.
I liked it.
And they still have it for like consoles. It's just PC games.
I liked it because I actually had a copy of it, especially if it was one of those games that you could just download from the CD direct instead of going to the website or anything, or like having to go and check it. But like now it just feels like if you buy the game remotely, it's like if you don't download it, or if you download it and then you uninstall it and then you go back, if that company doesn't exist, you just don't have a game anymore.
I had quite a few Nancy Drew games on CD. I don't know. I must not have been the one to pick them out because I just remember them being there one day. So I don't know if my mom bought them from like on a discount or what, or if my sister wanted them. But we had quite a few. So we had Secrets Can Kill, which is the first one. And that was one of those back when the 90s, like first video games, where it was so big you had to split it onto 2 discs.
Right.
And the way they split it was if you wanted to go to one location and or it's like you could go to the school and that's like one CD, and then every other location is you have to put in a new disc.
Whew.
Yeah, so that kind of sucked.
That's pretty brutal because it's like, oh, gotta go back.
And then I had Stay Tuned for Danger, which is the second. I'm reading off a list of ones that I have. Message in a Haunted Mansion, I knew we had. I think we had the final scene, Secret of the Scarlet Hand. I don't know if we had the final scene. I know we did have Secret of the Scarlet Hand. And then we had Danger on Deception Island.
Okay.
And then we had the Secret of Shadow Ranch, which was a horse-themed one. So, of course, I had that one.
Of course she had it.
And I think those are the only ones that we had. And I would play through them, but I would always get stuck eventually. And so I never completed them until I was
Till
like
you came
20.
back for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, no shame. I started doing that with my Nintendo 64. There were a bunch of games that I have in my house, and every time I go back, I would be like, let me see if I can beat this game. Some of them you cannot beat because they were just unplayable. Like, I feel like there's a generation of kids that just got basically like your parents were gambling every time they bought a game because it's like, oh, this one works. Oh, this one doesn't work.
Yeah. I had a few PS2 and PC games that I like really kept in rotation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go back to what I was talking about. So we have 33 main games, including a remaster of the first game, so that makes it 34 technically. They also had 2 dossier games, which are a different format, which people did not take well. They did not. Let me tell you about the Nancy Drew fandom. They don't like change.
So is it Microsoft DOS, or is it just a file format?
No, it's the name. It's called Dossier.
Oh, the game style.
Yeah, the name is called Dossier.
I was confused for a second. I'm sorry.
Listen, my apparently unpopular opinion is that I really like these style games, but they are very different. They're not.
There comes Mikayla, always having the controversial takes.
If you are a big fan of the Nancy Drew games and you were expecting a Nancy Drew game, this is going to be disappointing to you. So I understand why it got like some backlash, but I think that they're really fun actually. But they're like not very long games. They're probably like closer to 3 hours, and like some of these games are like 8-hour games.
Right.
And they're like hidden object style.
Yeah.
Which people don't. Is a different type of game.
Yeah, based off of what I saw from this other game that we played.
Yeah. It's like
that sounds very
with
different.
Mini games. It's pretty.
Still mini games though. Like that's the thing that I noticed now that I've seen about 2 or 3 of these games played. They love mini games in these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the puzzles are a big part of Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew is a book series, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they they license the rights from Simon and Schuster. So Nancy Drew is not public domain.
Really?
No, it's not old enough to be public domain.
Oh, okay.
I think the first one was 1930 something.
Oh, so it's coming up though.
Well, so it's 100 years after the author's death.
Yeah, so it's
I don't
coming
know
up.
when the author died.
Oh.
And then it would only be, I think it's 100 years after the author's death.
So it's coming up, and it's like, no, it's not coming up.
No. Well, so the issue would also be like the first book would technically be it's like Winnie the Pooh. The first book would be public domain when it does go into public domain, but there's many characters who aren't introduced until later books. Mm-hmm. And also the plots would not be public domain of the later books. So it's like they're kind of stuck licensing it from Simon and Schuster for a while.
Just full disclosure. The Nancy Drew books were written by a group called the Stratemeyer Syndicate, and the pen name Carolyn Keene. She died. The lady who actually wrote it was named Mildred Benson. She died in 2002.
So because it's a pen name, like it's packaged book, they might have different rules. So you could probably Google when does Nancy Drew enter public domain, and I would guess it's like 2035 would be around my guess.
I'm gunning for it because I want to write a gritty reboot of the Nancy Drew series, like a Law and Order version of Nancy Drew, but she's a private detective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that before. Actually.
Oh yeah, it's coming. I'm gonna do it. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, it actually goes into the original book goes out of copyright in 2026."
Oh, so sooner than I thought.
Yeah. The revised text won't go into public domain until 2055.
Okay.
But the original copy will go in 2026.
I think there's a lot of differences between like later copies. I haven't read the Nancy Drew books. I did own some as a kid, and really my older sister did, and I never read them. So I don't really know exactly, but I'm pretty sure like some characters like George and Bess don't go into public domain for much later.
I do love that we live. Okay. So I do love that we live in a world where if you go to Wikipedia, copyright status is on there because everyone's about to be cashing in on some fanfic that they're gonna turn into real text. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that there was such a deep continuity with this, like the different characters. I thought it was more like people were just writing books, kind of like
no,
the Henry Higgins books. Those were my favorite books.
So the Dossier games, there's 2 of them, and there was supposed to be a third, but it was canceled because of the reception. Presumably, it could also be for other reasons, like they had money trouble around this time, I think.
Oh, like studio?
Yeah. They also tried to turn some games into mobile, so they did that with Secrets of Shadow Ranch. And they were supposed to do a second installment, Castle Finster, which I think is an original game, because unless they like renamed one of the other ones, it's an original game. But that was also canceled, and those were like pure point hidden object style games.
Okay.
So it kind of lost the appeal of the Nancy Drew game. I think that they're just different audiences, and if the dedicated Nancy Drew fan base doesn't like pick it up, it's going to have trouble finding traction.
Right. It's such a dedicated fan base of game players that they really... Quick question. Is there a fan base that isn't explicitly book fans in this group?
I am talking explicitly about the video game fans.
Oh, so I'm
not talking about book Nancy Drew fans.
These are not these aren't explicitly fans of the book.
They may be. They don't have to be.
They don't have to be. Okay.
These are people who are fans of the video games that I'm talking about.
That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the books. Nothing to do with the book.
That was my question. I was like, how much is this with the book, or how much is it with the game?
No, I'm talking only about the games right now.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so they also created a coding educational game in 2017 called Nancy Drew Codes and Clues, which was another mobile game, but it was geared toward a younger audience, and it seemed to be very successful. So it was to teach basic coding skills, also set with like the theme around being a mystery. It's not available on the Play Store. Mm-hmm. Well, the Google Play Store. Mm-hmm. I think it's still up on the Apple Store, so I wasn't able to play it to tell you what it was about or like how it was or if I enjoyed it. But from what I understand, it teaches you basic HTML sort of coding. It's for like
that's such a
young preteen.
That's such an Obama era coded game.
Yeah, it's like 9 like 9 to 13, I think, is the range that they're going for.
I'm just waiting for, good job, Nancy, teaching them how to code. Learn how to code, kids.
It also seemed, I couldn't check if it was on the Apple Store because it wouldn't load for me.
Right.
So I'm actually assuming that it's not on the Apple Store, but I did find it on the Amazon Digital Library Store.
Okay.
So I didn't play it.
It seems like these games, though, have a very like dedicated high demand or high demand amongst the fans of these kinds of games.
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
So let me see where I'm at. So HeR also created several other games. Very few compared to Nancy Drew. There's like, let me count, 1, 2, 3 other games that they've created besides Mackenzie & Co. So they created the Vampire Diaries game.
Uh-oh.
Couldn't find any information about what that was about.
Like the book series?
Yeah, and the TV. Well, I'm assuming
show.
the TV show is not around yet because it's 1996.
Yeah, because it's from a book series.
So the book series Vampire Diaries game. I have no idea. I want to know so much about that, and I have no idea. If anybody has played that game, let me know.
I was going to say, the audience can't see me, but my eyes are wide, and I need to know what is going on with the Vampire Diaries game.
Because HeR Interactive's website, you can only find Nancy Drew games on it, right?
They know where their bread's buttered.
Right. So there was like there's no Wikipedia article on this. I could not find any info. Couldn't even tell you if it was FMV or what. So they also did the Cody Capers, Cody Pops the Case in 2007.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Another mystery game. That's kind of their thing, is mystery games. So
they're like they just said we made money one way and then we're gonna do that forever.
Yeah, if I had to place bets, the Vampire Diaries game would be a FMV because it's their second game after Mackenzie & Co.
So it's like a full acted out thing.
That's my guess. I have no
idea.
Yeah. Because Secrets Can Kill was released in 98, so that's a whole 2 years after Vampire Diaries. Anyway. And then they also released the Hardy Boys Treasure on the Tracks, and that was for the Nintendo DS in 2009.
So my guys got the Hardy Boys as well.
Yeah, the Hardy Boys do play a role in these games.
I do remember watching one of them, and the Hardy Boys were in it. Or not in it, but they were calling in.
No, there's one where... I didn't play this one because it looks bad. But there's one... I'll point it out when I get to it, but it's set in Hawaii, and you can play as Frank and Joe. Freaking
the
Joe
Hardy
Hardy.
Boys.
You can play as them. Yeah.
You can
Usually you can call them.
You can call in for air support from the Hardy Boys
in the later games. They're not in the early ones, but yeah. So, and then there's also the latest Nancy Drew game, The Mystery of the Seven Keys, is supposed to release this year, Matt. Aren't you excited?
Wait, they're releasing another game?
Yeah, they're releasing another game.
In the words of the developer, I think it was Vince Zampella, who made Modern Warfare 1 and 2, fresh off the heels of their success in Nancy Drew.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about like their release schedule.
Yeah, what's that look like?
First, let me give you just a rundown of some titles. So if you're interested, here's a quick 34 titles.
She says, here's a sampling.
Secrets Can Kill. Stay tuned for danger. Message in a Haunted Mansion.
Oof.
Treasure in the Royal Tower.
Okay.
That's Marie Antoinette themed.
Ooh, I might play that one, actually.
I have it if you want to play. The Final Scene. Secret of the Scarlet Hand. Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake. The Haunted Carousel. Danger on Deception Island.
Okay.
The Secret of Shadow Ranch.
Let's keep it going.
2003 and 2004.
That's the horse one, right?
Respectively, yes. My two favorites. Curse of Blackmore Manor.
Okay.
Secret of the Old Clock.
Okay.
Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. Danger by Design. The Creature of Kapu Cave, which is the Hawaii one. It does not look good. I'm purposely not buying it. The White Wolf of Icicle Creek.
Interesting.
Which was also available on the Nintendo Wii.
Ooh, we would like to play.
I will say The Curse of Blackmore Manor was on a DVD as well. I don't know how that worked, but that sounds interesting. The Legend of the Crystal Skull.
Okay.
The Phantom of Venice,
All right.
The Hauntings of Castle Malloy,
Okay.
Ransom of the Seven Ships, Warnings at Waverly Academy, Trail of the Twister, Secrets Can Kill Remaster,
The remix.
Shadow at the Water's Edge, which is set
Okay.
in Japan, The Captive Curse, which is set in Germany.
They got them everywhere.
I'm currently playing that one. Yeah, they do. Alibi in Ashes, Tomb of the Lost Queen, The Deadly Device, Ghost of Thornton Hall, The Silent Spy, The Shattered Medallion, Labyrinth of Lies, Sea of Darkness, and Midnight in Salem. So
Salem as in Massachusetts?
yes, and then the Seven Keys is set in Prague, which I think will be fun.
Oh. Nancy Drew, what did I be doing in the new in the Massachusetts bag colony?
You can tell if you were trying to be Creole or
No, it was more puritanical.
no. I got it at the end. They do have one set in New Orleans.
We go on the New Orleans.
Okay, so Nancy Drew, as you can see from the 34 here, had a pretty active. So it currently has a pretty active fan base, but they also used to release twice a year.
Oh, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, but in 2015, HeR suffered some setbacks, so they also decided to change the engine, which was part of the reason why the game was delayed. So I will put that out there. They were on the same engine from 98 until 2015. They did not
Wait.
change their engine.
Time out. You didn't say that.
I'm telling you right
people,
now.
People were playing basically the same game with the same like hiccups and the same.
Well, no, I mean it runs pretty smooth, but the engine,
Well, it's a point and click though. So.
Yeah, I mean the engine was the same, and the graphics got better, and like, you know,
They
but
said these
it's
assets
basically
are
the
a
same
lot.
thing.
These assets are a lot less pixelated than the last time. They're doing a really good job.
Hey,
I will say one thing I respect about these Nancy Drew fans is that genuinely, you guys seem like you're really just having a great time. Like it's not like, oh, this is like, you know, like if you play first person shooters, like a big part of that crowd will always be like the graphics aren't good enough, or like this is not realistic enough, or oh it's like we need it more realistic. Like you're just having fun with the game and you just love the content that they're doing.
I feel like I have to pull up a Midnight in Salem thing. I won't show it to you yet, but I feel like I have to show you the difference in graphics,
Okay.
and you will have some commentary.
Okay.
So let me just finish this spiel. I
Go
feel
ahead.
like we've been derailing quite a bit. So they used to release twice a year, but in 2015, when they were supposed to release Midnight in Salem, it instead came out in 2019. So 4-year delay. And that could be for a couple of reasons. Again, like I said, they changed their engine for the first time.
That's probably it.
And then when they did release it, it was not received well. And it currently has a 39% positive rating on Steam. So people were not happy. I think I haven't played it because, first of all, it's like $20 still on Steam, and because it's so poorly rated that I haven't yet played it. But my understanding is that they changed the mechanics so it's more open world roaming-esque instead of
Interesting.
traditional point and click. And the graphics. Actually, I guess I'll show you right now. So Matt, keep in mind what you saw when we were playing Danger on Deception Island, like the art style.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in my mind, centered in my mind.
How good it looked. I mean, it was a 90s game, but you know.
Yeah, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it didn't look awful. And then look at that screen grab. Midnight in Salem.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it looks like they're made out of clay.
They should have not done that.
It
if they were
honestly
gonna do
is
this.
worse graphics. They should have just kept the 98 ones.
They're doing too much. Like it looks like bad Skyrim.
And
It's not even Skyrim quality.
No,
It looks bad.
It's like jarring.
Yeah. Is Nancy Drew the black-haired?
You never see Nancy.
Oh, you're talking to this person. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. wow, this looks awful. It looks like they did basically like they took like generic assets as like an asset flip, like in video games, where you just like take the models from like the Unity store and you just plop it into your game. This is what it looks like. I'm not saying they did that, but it looks like they just like made some buildings in Sims and then we're like, all right, we're gonna just make the game now.
Yeah, it doesn't look great in my opinion.
This is rough looking. Wow. I'm not even like yeah, you're right. Like if you go back to that Deception Island game, it's not the prettiest looking game, but it's still better than that. And
I don't even think it's bad looking.
It's not bad looking. It's
No.
for what it is. Because, you know, I think the benefit is that it's a static picture basically. So
Yeah.
you don't have to do much. And I think that a static image probably looks better than that.
Whatever that was.
They could have stuck with the static thing and just like, you know.
Listen, I'm not in their house. I don't know.
We're not there at the company. We can go to Bellevue and ask.
We're literally going tomorrow.
We could just go drive by and say, hey guys, we're big fans.
So part of the reason why this was probably delayed is because they also have major layoffs in March 2015.
Oh, wow.
So this was going to be their second release of 2015, so like their late release, but in March they had major layoffs.
Yeah,
So they laid off 13 employees in one day, which was over half of the company.
What's going on?
Because this is not a major company.
That's a lot of labor right there gone for a game.
Many of their employees had worked there for over a decade or longer.
Yeah, I figured.
And it was always a really small organization with an average of 30 employees in the 2000s.
Wow.
And the maximum they ever had was 50 when they tried to do contract work, which was pretty rare. Actually, for her, it was mostly all in-house art.
That's impressive.
And design.
That's actually impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's really like impressive as a small, indie video game.
Anytime that I see that, it's like, oh, you're doing this in-house and you're putting out 2 of them a year. Like, you could say whatever you want about how many, like, rooms or buildings are in a Nancy Drew game, but the fact that someone built each one of those in-house, and that's their job, that's very impressive.
And they reuse assets, but like so does every video game. So
yeah, but that's very impressive. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that they didn't reach quite the success I think they were like. Obviously, they had some financial difficulties if they had to release half of their staff.
Yeah.
So the problems began in November 2014 with the transition of a new CEO, Penny Milliken. Penny Milliken. So after she begun her let go sounds like I have improper grammar, but it's just her interactive let go.
Oh, yeah.
Of the longtime voice actor of Nancy, Lainey Minella.
Wow.
This was not well received.
Yeah, that's like your
pissed
money,
off
right?
A lot of people.
Right.
It was an extremely unpopular decision among fans. So her last game was Sea of Darkness, which was the one released right before midnight in Salem.
Right.
And also not a hit, on one of the less favorable ones.
Okay.
Of the Nancy Drew series. It's set in Iceland.
That's like firing, like for this franchise, that's like firing Master Chief from Halo.
She voiced Nancy from the very beginning.
From the start, I believe, yeah, you told me that. That is crazy.
Or maybe the second one on. I can't remember if she's in the first, but yeah. And there's a couple theories about why she was let go from the financing.
We love theories.
To how old and mature she sounded.
For Nancy?
Yeah, but Minella said that she was always directed to sound like that. She said they were very particular with, like, she can't say slang, and she has, like, these quirky traits about her, like she mispronounces things, and anyway.
She can't say, hey, what's going on, cat daddy-o?
So she claimed that She also claims that she can be sound any age and maintain it.
Okay.
She was never,
she's a professional voice actor.
Yeah,
so.
and she said she was never asked to do so.
I was gonna ask that because I remember playing the game, but also listening to the game when you were playing, and she always sounded more mature.
She does. She sounds
than most of the people that are her age.
And Nancy is sort of like this vague, like you're not quite sure if she's a teenager or in her 20s or what.
Mikayla,
that's intentional.
Are you saying that when you think about Nancy Drew as an idea, she's an abstraction? She's not real.
Sure. You never see her face. That's like one of the features of Nancy Drew. She's supposed to be like a stand-in character for you, right?
Right.
So that's like intentional.
But she has a personality, which is
she does. It's an awful one.
She is kind of a terrible person, low-key.
This is also very well accepted within the fandom that Nancy kind of sucks.
I didn't believe it until you were playing your other game, the one that she's in Germany, and she just completely is in Germany while her boyfriend is trying to do an anniversary. I was like, come on, Nancy.
Yeah, she's not nice to her boyfriend all the time. Poor Ned.
Poor Ned. But you know what? I'm going to say this. She's dating a guy named Ned, so, it is what it is.
So then a former employee of HeR actually came out and claimed that Manila leaked the script of Sea of Darkness.
Oh.
And confidential information about the company.
What is...
So she denied that, but that's why they claim that she was fired.
What is
or
the
this
confidential information, if true?
I don't know.
Allegedly, if true.
I don't know if it's
what
just
is the information that would have been so... The people are going to play it anyway. They're going to still play it.
I mean, leaking the script of your game is pretty awful.
It is.
A puzzle-based game.
Yeah, it is. But they're going to still play it. If someone told me, Matt, here's the plot of Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, I would still play Modern Warfare 2.
It's a little different, honey.
I'm gonna still do it. I'm still buying it full price.
I'm just saying.
I love it. I can't get enough.
You can't be leaking the script it's a fair offense to fire someone.
I agree. I'm just saying.
You're just being contrarian.
What is for the side it's just she's such a big center point in this because clearly, like you said, the community doesn't when they change things. This is one of those you slap her on the wrist and then be like, never do that. Or
I wasn't done.
Oh, there's more.
So she did deny this, but this employee also claimed that she was behaving erratically and in a frightening manner towards employees as well. So
okay, that will get you canned.
Yeah.
If it's true.
That is what they claim. This employee who I don't know if it's called whistleblowing, if this is in this case, because it's not really whistleblowing, but
it's more like leaking.
This employee who leaked information who apparently I think was in the forum that they did this through was verified to be an employee.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All alleged.
So anyway, let's get to fun stuff. So for being a local company in Washington, they've only made one game set here.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which is kind of...
They could really play with it because there's a lot of places here.
But to be fair, they set every Nancy Drew game in a different place. So there's
That's true. There's a lot of places in the world.
Yeah.
Also. She hasn't...
I was reflecting on this actually. So they've been to Africa because she's been to Egypt.
I was going to ask, has she been to Sub-Saharan Africa or South
She's been to
Africa?
Egypt.
So Northern Africa.
She's been to Egypt. And that's it.
Okay.
But I was reflecting on this. So I don't think she's been anywhere in South America.
So she just doesn't do tropics.
Well,
she doesn't do anything south of the equator, basically.
Oh no, that's Hawaii one. I don't think she's been in South America, and I could be wrong. It could just be that I haven't played that game.
She's not hiking up the Andes.
But there's a lot in Europe.
Of course.
And there's one in Japan. I think that's the only one in Asia.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's probably
it's
also...
lot of Europe, and I would like to see some South America. I would like to see some Africa would be cool.
Yeah, come on. HeR Studios, we're waiting for the content to be somewhere else.
Yeah, anyway... Danger on Deception Island is the one set in Washington. We've introduced it so many times. So let me give you some things about Deception Island, the real island. It is real, but it's too small to be inhabitable. Because
Yes.
it's just a little tiny thing by Deception Pass.
Uh-huh.
I didn't actually include... I decided, I guess, that I would talk about some history of Deception Island when it's relevant.
Real island?
Yeah.
I know a little bit about it because it's right next to where I
So there's
live.
not much going on because it's an uninhabitable, but I'm not going to tell you the information because it kind of leads into a spoiler. So we're going to go through the game first, and then when it's relevant, I will tell you if something
I
is
did know
based in
that there
reality.
was a quarry there at one point.
Yeah,
In the
there
back in the day, back in the turn of the into the 20th century. But other than that, I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so let's go through the game, and then you can tell me some of your impressions because this was your first time playing through.
Yeah,
It was again, like I said, not my first time. So, the game, Danger on Deception Island, opens with Nancy arriving at Deception Island. Ooh, I'm so excited. Nancy is taking a vacation to visit George, her friend's friend. Her friend George's friend, Katie Firestone.
Yeah, she's not meeting someone that you know. You're meeting someone you don't know.
Typically how it goes in these games.
Yeah.
Katie Firestone of the Firestones, like of car company fame.
The tire company.
maybe?
Which, if you know
I don't
anything
know.
about what's going on with salmon and tires, that's kind of ironic.
Yeah, I don't think that's intentional.
I
just
know.
think it's
This
funny.
was decades before that was discovered, but it's just funny that her name is
No,
Firestone.
I think Firestone unrelated to the Firestones.
Oh, yeah. It's not even that either.
So she is going to Snake Horse Harbor, which is a small town on Deception Island. She takes a ferry to get there, and they include an actual photo of the Washington State ferries, and they look the same.
It was that ferry. Yeah. And I was going to say that was clearly like they had the stuff from.
Oh, they went out to Mukilteo and took a photo.
You know what happened? I know that studio, they were so stoked that they were like, we're going to go to Whidbey.
They're
today.
like, we don't have to travel very far for this one.
This is going to be an off day for our research, and it's just them going to South Whidbey. Because they clearly took the South Whidbey ferry.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said they went to Mukilteo.
Even though they did have the picture of San Juan Harbor. Mm-hmm. So I assume that someone had to come up here to the Anacortes outlet too.
It's known that they do research trips. Okay. So I'm sure they did.
Yeah, because they had the picture of Friday Harbor, and I was like, I've been in that harbor. I know that place.
And despite the fact that they live here, so they have intuitive knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess not intuitive, but long-term knowledge. Mm-hmm. So you take the ferry to get there, and then you show up at Katie's boat, and you find out that her engine has been tampered with. So Katie starts fixing the engine, and she tells you a bit about what's been going on the island recently, which is that an orca has shown up in the channel, and it's kind of thrown the town into chaos. So you go into... So that's sort of the premise of this game. And Matt, you can fill in if I feel like if you think there's something important I'm missing out.
They had a town, they will reveal later, I guess, when you walk into town. But they had a town meeting about this, and it did feel like how a small Washington town is when it comes to town meetings. Mm-hmm. How everyone's just really butthurt after it happens.
Yeah, we'll learn a little bit more about that. So, one of the first puzzles that you do is you're fixing the pipes underneath Katie's sink, and there you find Andy Jason's card, who is the owner of Whale World, which is a whale learning center and also where he takes whale watching tours out.
This is very on brand for that area. The whale watching tour competition.
Yeah, because important to note is that Katie also operates whale watching tours.
they're dueling whale watching tours.
So this is where you find out about the town meeting. So you go talk to Katie and you're like, who could have done this? And she says, well, I don't know, but I did shoot my mouth off at the town meeting last night.
She says, I don't know, but basically everyone in town.
Everyone in town hates
It's
Katie
me.
Firestone. She's public enemy number one.
It's so funny that she was like, I don't know, but I did I did literally piss off the whole town with my takes.
Literally everyone hates her.
The original poster. She's on. She said, I have hot takes and everyone hates them.
Yeah.
I'm suffering.
So basically the town meeting was about this, what to do with this orca. And Katie called the feds. And the feds threatened everyone to stay away from the orca or risk a fine, with the exception of Katie. Because Katie, I don't know if it's like official, but she's like a biologist.
She's a licensed researcher. Or not licensed researcher, but she actually has like a research project going on about orca explicitly.
Right. She's like
which
a
makes her
scientist.
different than the other whale tourer on the island.
And she can get close to it to monitor its condition.
Which others are like, that's unfair.
Well, I think that comes up later, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can mention it now. Like, she also, you find out that she like also takes paying customers with her to do these tours, to check up on the
Which, I'm
whale.
not going to lie, that's a little unethical.
Yeah, no, it is. Reminder that this is, what year did I say this was? 98? No, that's the first game. This is 2003.
Yeah,
this is like peak Save the Whales environmentalist.
Oh yeah,
sort
Free
of rhetoric.
Willy is still in everyone's brain.
So Katie Firestone is like the environmentalist archetype.
But she's also, like I said, she's got this kind. That's one thing I do like about Nancy Drew. So far that you've shown me, she does have like little streaks in her that you're like, this could be something that she could. She's not perfect. Like a game would have easily made her like the perfect ally in this situation. She's good.
She is the ultimate moderate.
Right.
She is like the pure like middle of the road person.
Right.
She never takes a stance, and it's because you can choose sort of what your stance is. Like it's like, again, she's a self-insert character.
Right.
So you can't have a strong personality.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like with Katie's character, Katie isn't perfect. Like they don't write a perfect first character that you're
because they have to be everyone in the town has to have suspicion
right.
on them.
Right. And I really appreciated that, where it's not insulting, where it's like, Katie's perfect. She would never do anything like this. It's like you're finding out right off the bat. Like she does take some of these people on her scientific trips and gets paid for it and is still like running a business at the end of the day.
Yeah. So Katie says that she does not want to call the sheriff because she doesn't want to make her insurance rates go up.
I can't relate.
So she decides to fix the engine herself. And while she does that, you can go explore town and pretty much do the whole game until the end game.
Yeah,
and then she finally fixes it.
Yeah, she gets it fixed at the end.
So you go take Nancy's bike and you can go to 4 locations. So you can go to the lighthouse, Katie's Boat, which we are currently at, the Hot Kettle Cafe, in Whale World. And if you don't put on Nancy's helmet, you get a game over. And you have to put on her helmet every single time that you take the bike. Every single time.
Instant death.
Instant die. And you know how many times I forgot the helmet as a kid? Which I understand why they're doing this, because it's like 4 kids. And you're like, no, you have to wear your helmet. And bike safety was a big thing. But it's so annoying as a mechanic. We're going to go to the Hot Kettle Cafe as our first stop.
I really love this spot.
And when you first get there, the first thing you see is a little sign that says Holt Scotto for Harbor Master. So that's important. Inside, you find 2 people, one of which is Holt Scotto.
Oh my God.
And the other is the cafe owner, Jenna.
Oh yeah, Jenna.
So let's start with Holt. Holt is a fisherman, and he absolutely hates Katie environmentalism.
He hates her guts.
And he is so 2003 Republican coded.
He's like
he's blast from the past Republican.
It was like a refreshing character because I was like, oh, I know that guy. He's insane now.
Yeah. He has a line that says, I think we should do what's right instead of doing what's politically correct. And I was like, oh my God, please.
This guy who also voted for, or who wanted the Iraq war to start. This is the same guy.
Holt is he's hot.
Yeah, he's actually not He's actually not a hideous character
No,
model.
he's
They could have
really
made
cute.
him.
He's supposed to be like what 50 something, but
I would
he's
say
hot.
late 50s.
Yeah.
Because he's like white hair.
He has like
but
gray curly hair.
But he's a working man.
He's
Clearly,
very
he's a
attractive.
working man, and he's got like the fit of a fisherman.
Yeah.
Like
He has like a nice sweater on.
yeah, he's got his little knitted sweater. I mean, the characters. That's also the hard part about this game that I acknowledge. If you're a kid, you probably couldn't tell. No one is clearly coded as the bad guy in this game.
No, that's the whole point of none of them are.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the mystery of
No
it.
one's creepy. Like I've heard some of the games that you've played where there's like one or two creepy characters.
And they're usually a red herring.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying like in this game, no one's like
Everyone's
outwardly
pretty
malicious.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a very Washington way.
Yeah.
Very subtle. They had so much art in this game.
Yeah, he hates environmentalism, this whole Scotto, which is so accurate because he's a fisherman. So he gives us some history of the Snake Horse Harbor. So it's home to the Cadborosaurus, which is basically like a Nessie type. Calls it Caddy. And Caddy is real. Fun fact. So he was named by a journalist, Archie Wills, and is known to be around here in the Pacific Northwest, but especially in Cadboro Bay in Greater Vancouver, BC.
I was going to say it must be on the other side of the border.
It's mostly in Greater Victoria, BC, not
Yeah,
Greater
yeah. So right off the tip of the island.
And perhaps we'll have a future episode on this little guy, because I do want to do the cryptids of the Northwest.
Yeah,
so.
we need to do that. That's one of those like classics.
Yeah, I cut back on his history. I didn't want to go into deep dive
Let's save
about
it for
him because
later.
I feel like we can save him for later.
Let's save it for later.
But yeah, he's like a Nessie type. And
I did not know it was a real thing. And I've lived here for many years. And I never knew
Yeah.
that was a real thing.
And he's not a major part of the story. He's just sort of like a minor mascot.
No, it's like
sort of thing.
It's a cool little factoid, and now that I know it's a real thing, it's like you gave little kids a little bit to kind of go. Oh.
Yeah, it's fun. So Holt also tells us men were known, not currently, but were known to vanish off the island. Holt believes this was Shanghaiing
Oh boy.
using secret tunnels.
Oh boy.
And this is actually based in reality, so not through Deception Island, but from Ben Uri Island. They would human traffic, and it was like a big old operation, but they would be human trafficking Chinese labor.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were stealing them to go be pirates on the ships and like,
No.
you know.
Yeah. I think I want to say Deception Island was one of the stops on that.
It might have been, but
Because I've heard about when I was at the park, I heard that one of the park guys talk about the fact that they used to traffic people from BC through out the sound.
would. So they would like island hop in the San Juans, and Ben Uri I know is like the major one, but it's very possible that they did a stop in Deception Island. I'm not quite sure, because when I found information on it, it was with Deception Pass was like the point, not Deception Island. So
Right.
there-
It's a small island though. So
yeah, and
that
there's
explains it.
no hidden tunnels in the San Juan human trafficking ring
No.
of the.
They didn't need to do that.
I don't
back
know
then.
when this was 18 something.
Probably the mid 1800s. Yeah, for sure.
So let's see. So then we also meet Jenna, who is indigenous coded.
Oh, 100%.
Uh-huh.
She's like the only character who's like
Kinda
not
brown.
completely pale.
Yeah.
And she's like got the dark hair, and then like she always talks about her grandma.
Yes. And Jenna has strong opinions about the orca too.
Mm-hmm.
So she thinks that the orca should be rejoined with its pod regardless.
That's the other reason why it's clear. I think it's coded.
Yeah. And Katie, on the other hand, we had learned she thinks that the orca is sick and therefore should be rehabbed before it is rejoined by its pod, or like rejoins its pod. And Jenna thinks that Katie actually just wants to put it in an aquarium, and she also thinks that Katie is currently feeding the orca.
Yeah, that was one thing that she did say that I was like, oh, that changes the...
Now, this is important that Jenna claims that the Shanghaiing never happened. So
Really?
We're going to go over... Whale World is currently closed, so we're going to go over to the lighthouse.
Before we head over to the lighthouse, I did want to mention Ben-Hur Island. You were talking about it having a being a place for Shanghai. When I was living in Oak Harbor, we did a couple of site visits, and like we weeded and did the restoration project the county did a restoration project in Cornet Bay, which is right across from Ben-Hur Island, and they built a new cabin, but there was originally an old cabin that used to be there. So I wonder if that was like the original site where that footprint was the Shanghai cabin, was the island, the Shanghai cabin, because it's not the same cabin now, clearly, but it's the same footprint where it was at one point.
Yeah, so we're briefly going to go visit the lighthouse, where you find a piece of driftwood marked SS that's important for the end game, so I'm mentioning it here. You also try and go into the lighthouse that's like condemned, and Scotto appears out of nowhere.
Like a ghost.
And harasses you and says, "Get out of here.
It's trespassing."
Yeah, and it's locked up anyway, so you can go
That's
in
the
at this
nicest
point.
trespassing interaction that you probably could ever have in a small western Washington town.
Yeah. I'm not going to do super detailed rundown of this
totally
game
agree, 'cause
because I'm
someone might
skipping the
And
puzzles.
also somebody might want to play the game.
Yeah, I am going to ruin it for you, but you know, like there's much more to it than to what we're going to say. So if you want to play it, it's still worth it. Yeah, so let's go back. We're going to go back to Whale World now. And
Oh,
you find
God,
out,
Whale World.
you find out Andy Jason is trying to buy Katie out. He wants to
Straight up.
buy her business so that he is the only whale watching tour on the island.
Trump moves. Big money.
You also find out that there's been burglaries in the shops, but there's no forced entry, so it's sort of unexplained. He also thinks that Jenna ruined Katie's boat. That's who he is throwing the blame on.
It was her. This guy was the most... Oh, man. This guy... let me tell you about this guy. He was so annoying, and every time...
He is pretty annoying. He's too enthusiastic.
He's way too enthusiastic.
Whales rule!
But he always said whales. I was gonna say that I want a clip of him, that voice actor, saying "whales rule."
Whales rule!
Whales rule!
Whales rule. He just
Right,
says
maybe
it.
we can put it in.
Oh God, yeah. We need to take the sound clip and just put it in there because it is so annoying, but it's so like on brand for this particular.
That's how he
game.
says goodbye.
Yeah, he says goodbye by whales rule. Also, this is how I also know that someone who worked in this has been in San Juan County. This is just the whale museum. It literally has like some of the same exhibits. Well, I mean, not literally, but like some of them very close to the same exhibits. And I was like, oh, I remember that.
They have a lot of so they have like 5 or 4 mini games in there.
Right.
And you have to do them as part of like the plot of the game. And they're kind of fun.
If they were in the whale museum in San Juan County, I would have a great time.
Yeah, and one of them is like naming the whale calls. And Matt's a biologist. You would think that he would do well.
I did very
he did
poorly.
Not.
I was struggling. I was like, oh, that's a killer whale. That was my only one. I was like, that's a orca. And then every other one, I was like, I have no idea.
My whale enthusiasm exceeds your biology degree.
Yeah, if someone played a harbor porpoise call, I would know what it is. But everything else, they had a porpoise on there, but it wasn't a harbor porpoise. And I was just like, I have no idea. Like the killer whale, that, they all sound the same some ways. And then the big baleen whales all sound the same, all sound very similar.
The humpback is kind of distinct, but
yeah. But only because that's the sound that you think of when you think of a whale.
Yeah. We're gonna jump through some of this game. We're gonna skip a whole.
There's a lot to skip through, and honestly, it's not like we're gonna change the outcome here.
So one of the things you found at the lighthouse was a message in a bottle.
Message
And you
in
decode
a
it and you find some
bottle.
coordinates and you go to the coordinates and then, like long drawn out puzzles.
And you keep getting...
So many puzzles.
Yeah, this is so many... Puzzle after puzzle, actually. Literally, in some cases.
So you ask people what's up with these message in a bottle, and they think it's from Hilda Swanson.
They said it's Sting, duh.
She is a Hollywood actress and former mayor of Snake Horse Harbor.
Which is crazy.
who supposedly lost her mind when her husband died.
They were just like casually, oh yeah, she's crazy, by the way. Like, what? Guys, wasn't this your mayor? Wouldn't you be a little bit nicer about this than just, yeah, she's crazy. Do you know that?
Yeah, she's such a mystery.
Also, you never meet her physically in the game, right?
She calls you and you talk to her over the phone. But
I
she's
was
a woman
really
of mystery.
hoping that one of the reveals was that we were going to get help by her. Because that would have been really dope that she like broke her silence or exile. Yeah. Just to be like, I saw you in danger, Nancy.
She said, fix this problem for me.
She says, fix this problem for me. She literally talks like a 1920s lady. Like the transatlantic accent. She talks like this.
Yeah.
And she is like Nancy Drew. I know who you are, Nancy. And you're like, whoa, you're creepy.
So when Hilda left, she left all her stuff because she was trying to convince everybody that she was crazy. And so one of the things that she left was a notebook on Benjamin Barker, which she believes
barber of Fleet Street,
which is the guy who is shanghaiing people.
Yes,
correct?
In real life,
yeah,
or in the game. I just laughed because that's the name of Sweeney Todd in
Benjamin Barker.
Barker's his real name.
Yeah,
It's just like not the demon barber of Fleet Street.
I thought it was something similar, but it wasn't correct.
No, it's because Alan Rickman screams it before,
Oh. Yeah, well, Benjamin Barkers.
They're all bad. All Benjamin Barkers have been bad.
So she thinks that somebody's found it and misusing it. And it's hard to say this because it's so nonlinear. So I'm trying to do it in a way that makes sense. But you did discover that there are indeed tunnels underneath the town connecting everything. And they lead in particular to the lighthouse. And you also can look up in the stores that you found out were burglarized. And you find so these tunnels do connect the whole town. So she thinks that somebody's using this notebook of his to use the tunnels and perform some shady business. Mm-hmm. So she gives us a pair of red tinted binoculars. She tells us to go back to Whale World to look at a boat that's in a bottle that Andy has. You tell Jenna about the tunnels, and she says, "Don't tell anybody."
She says, "Do not go into the tunnels."
She says, "I don't want you in there." And then you're like, "Well, you're either gonna let me in there, or you're gonna tell the sheriff." And she's like, "Don't tell the sheriff."
Don't tell the sheriff.
And that's so shady. It's so weird, right?
I think that genuinely, that was clearly it was like a red herring in the plot to throw us off, but it's still weird that she's like, "Don't tell anyone that these tunnels exist." Also, don't tell the sheriff that these tunnels exist. I'd have been like, why not?
So
I would want to know why there's a tunnel connection.
Why was she so secretive about it? It didn't make sense. When you find out what's going on, it doesn't make sense.
It's still her reasons. She doesn't even explain what her reasons are, so it doesn't even matter. But it's still creepy and weird.
And underneath the lighthouse, you do a puzzle. And you find out that it opens a secret part of the cave. And so you get in your little kayak again and you go out to the cave. And in the cave, you find that there is a orca. You see the orca.
Whales rule!
The rendering of this is not great.
Oh.
It's probably the worst part, art-wise, of the game. But it's not horrible.
They try to blend it. You do see them trying to blend it.
In 2003, it's not horrible.
It's like the whale is moving.
It just looks a little
on
fake.
A fixed background. So it's it's going to be hard for it no matter what.
I think the issue is it's pretty cartoony of a whale, and I think it's not realistic.
You could throw a ball at this whale and it bounces it back at you, which is an important part of the plot.
Yeah, so the whale is trained and she plays catch with you. You
so
also
cool.
find some
this whale is so cool.
You find out so you also find some gear for the whale that it wears. And it's like implying that this is a trained Russian orca.
When it was revealed that this was a Russian trained dolphin, also the fact that it's like, I was this way, it's just like the whale to be like, light up a cigarette. It's time for vodka break. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because they had like a tactical vest for this whale, and I was like, what is happening? What is going on with the plot of this game?
Yeah, so there was a part that I didn't mention where you like figure out where that driftwood piece came from, or like what kind of boat.
That was really annoying, so I'm glad that we didn't even think about it.
Well, when you find the orca, you also discover that there's boxes of the stuff. You also find like Katie's gloves.
Right.
And like it's like recovered sunken cargo, basically what you find.
I thought it was going to be treasure at first.
Yeah.
But it's not treasure.
So,
which is kind of a bummer.
So, this is where the end game picks up.
We're in the
So you go back
now.
to Katie's boat, and the boat is gone because Katie's engine is now fixed.
She said, I'm out. I'm bouncing.
So you go to Holt, and you're like, Holt, you have to give me a ride. And Holt was like, no, the fog's
too
coming
dangerous.
in. It's too dark. You don't need to go after Katie. And so you go to Andy's place.
Holt giving a reasonable answer for, I would consider a pretty not reasonable guy sometimes. It's like, no, it's dangerous for me and you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to she wanted to kayak to find her. And he was like, I'm not going to let you do that.
No, kind of.
Yeah.
And so you go to Andy's and you tell him everything that's going on. And you're like, Katie is the one who's been feeding. She has been feeding the orca, by the way. You do find like defrosted fish.
Fish in her.
She's
like
been
I said,
feeding
she's not perfect.
Yeah, she's been feeding the orca and she is doing something shady. Like, we need to go stop her. And Andy's like, okay, let's go. You want me to take you out on the boat? And you're like, halfway. I'm going to take me halfway. And then I'm going to roll up on my kayak and climb the side of the boat. And this is no joke, an exact. You do a stealth, like a SEAL 6 mission.
You go in like SEAL Team 6. It's like
yeah.
straight up onto the deck of the ship and just...
And you're hiding in corners. And we have recently just played through Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. And there's an exact mission that is like 1-to-1. This is like the same thing where you're like, it's super foggy out. You can't be detected on this ship. You have to hide behind barrels. It's when you're freeing the horses.
Yeah. You're
with
right.
eagle flies.
Yeah, that's a very similar mission.
It's a very, very, very similar.
Literally almost like
one for
bit
one.
for bit.
It's so funny.
And I'm not saying
so direct.
it's just one of those like, it's a stealth mission and it just comes out the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So you are, so you're on the ship and you're hiding behind cargo containers so you don't get caught. It's like
the crew's on the deck and they're clearly
quick timed.
They're clearly, because you can actually get caught. That's the thing. That's the cool part about these games too. Is like you can actually have things happen to you in the game.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, no matter what, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
In these little paused moments, or not paused, but these like moments in between clicking. Like you have to keep clicking. You have to keep going because you're gonna get caught by these goons, and they're goons. Like they talk like goons. I kind of wish that they had gone with the full embrace. They fully embraced the Russian thing and just like all Russian criminals.
No, they sound like they're from Massachusetts.
Yeah, they sound like they're like New England goons. They're not like, I was able to be like, oh, Victor, we got some borscht downstairs. Like, no, it was this all like, we're going down and get the coago. And you're just like, what is this? Who are these guys?
So it's around here that you found, okay, well, first of all, you hear them talking about you, expecting you. So they're on the lookout.
It's kind of like a Batman Arkham segment.
Yeah, they said boss told us she was going to be on her way, so be on the lookout.
Right.
Do you like that accent? That was pretty good. Huh?
Yeah, that was good.
So it's around this time that you like in one of your hiding spots, they have an open container. So they're smuggling seal furs and other furs. So So then you go down into the ship and you find Katie tied up.
They got Katie.
At first it's sort of framed in a way where you just are approaching the back of her head and you still have like this plausible, like, is it Katie? And then you turn her around and she's tied up.
I don't know why they did that. That was kind of weird. They were like,
Listen, it's like 8-year-olds, remember?
But I was like, what? They have Jenna here? Why would Jenna be here? We're not here for Jenna. Who
No,
would
it's
else
Katie.
be here? I'm saying...
No, you know it's Katie. You think that she's like sitting there as like the mastermind of the ship.
I didn't get that. And maybe that's just because I was like, it's clearly Katie, and like she's clearly gonna be like hemmed up, because why would she be below deck?
Yeah, the implication they're trying to give you is like she's sitting in her mastermind chair and she's going to spin around
Okay,
and
I
then
get
give
it
you
now.
a mastermind speech.
I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you find out that she's gagged and tied, and then you untie her gag, and you're like, "What happened?" And you're like, "She's like, it's Andy Jason. He's been
He sucks.
So this is convoluted, right? He's trained this orca to go retrieve cargo from the bottom of the ocean at this shipwreck, but it's all really a cover for the fur smuggling. So I don't know, because I don't think the fur. Maybe I'm wrong, and the furs do come from that. But my understanding was he's fur smuggling, and therefore he's using this cargo ship smuggling or like retrieving cargo from the ship as like a cover up.
I don't understand.
I don't. Anyway, so you find out Andy's behind it all, and then he comes down and you hide, and he's like, he sees Katie's ungagged, and he's like, "How did you get that off?" "Oh, Nancy, I know you."
Yeah, he automatically knows Nancy's there.
Well, he does know Nancy's there because he drove
dropped her
Nancy
off.
there.
Yeah, I mean in the room, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he clearly knows at that point.
So you run away from Andy into this. I don't know if you have a name for this, like, because you know ships. It's like the wet dock area.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually like the inside. It's like either it's like a
where you would like
wet
dock submarines
or like a hollow bay, depending on what you call it. But yeah, it lets water in.
Yeah.
It's like a holding tank, basically.
Yeah, so that you can, like, I don't know, if you have submarines, you can dock it there. But in this case, it's so that the orca can come up and play fetch, basically, or like retrieve items. So you're trying to run to the front of, like, out the top of the ship, but the door swings closed and you're trapped in this wet bay.
Yeah, this was bad vibes. I didn't like this.
With Andy. And, well, I didn't show you what happens. So if you don't do what you're supposed to do, so you're kind of facing Andy and he's like, "This is the end of the road, Nancy Drew."
He's talking mad. I'm not going to lie. He's talking mad right there.
Yeah, and then he approaches you and he goes, "Say goodnight, Nancy." And then he's like going to strangle you. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do fast enough, he does strangle you.
What?
Yeah, that's like your game over, is that he killed you. Mm-hmm.
He said,
pretty dark.
The light faded. Her light's fading from her eyes.
So what you're supposed to do is you see a scuba tank on the side, and
Hilarious.
the orca is there, and so you're supposed to, because when you first found out the orca could play fetch, it was with a scuba tank, because it like fell into the water, and then it almost knocks you out when the orca retrieves it. So
in this case, this is Chekhov's scuba tank.
Exactly. So what you have to do is you throw the scuba tank into the water, and then obviously the orca comes up. So when Andy is coming towards you with strangle hands, the orca launches the scuba tank at him. It hits him in the head, and he is knocked out.
They say he's knocked out. I'm like, this man is dead. Like,
yeah.
I know he's not dead because this is a kid's game, but I'm like, scuba tank hits you in the back of the head pretty hard.
Yeah.
You're not going to get back up okay.
Yeah. And then Holt shows up and he's
like
there to rescue.
U.S. Marine just storming the door open and being like, "We got the rest of them."
He's like, "I got the Coast Guard." Or he did tell you to call the Coast Guard
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
So then he comes and rescues you with the Coast Guard. And
okay, I'm not going to try to steal the Coast Guard's valor. This was their win. They got it.
That is their deal. And that's the end of the game. And so the one thing about Nancy Drew games is they all cut off pretty abruptly. It's like you
Yeah, what the hell was that? It was just like, oh, we're playing a game, we're playing a game. I was waiting for them to like, okay, full disclosure, Mikayla and I just got done playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is probably one of the best story games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And then playing that and going to a game from 2003 where basically you just like, and we got him, he's in jail, bye-bye.
No, it's like, it's literally like, you're like, Nancy Drew, are you down there? And he's like, you're like, hold. And then he opens the door and finds you. And he's like, Nancy, I'm here with the Coast Guard. We're here to rescue you.
Fades to black.
Hard cut.
Fades to black.
Hard cut. It doesn't even fade to black.
Yeah,
It
right.
hard cuts.
And there's no like, oh yeah, this thing just happened, or here it is.
Well,
Like,
it kind of, so the beginning of the game opens when it's like epistolary intros and outros.
yeah.
So the beginning is like you're writing Ned to say like, here's what I'm doing. And then the
Dear
hard
Ned.
cut happens and it's like, Dear Ned. And then you like wrap up what happened after the game.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, after the main game ends. Or the whole game actually, I guess. And so you like do the denouement of like, Holt was elected as harbor master after all. And
Which is a very important position in Western Washington.
well, in this town for sure.
Yeah.
It's
In
like
most
your
towns
only
in Western
thing is
Washington, it's like the
harbors.
biggest job there is. And job provider as well.
So it was like Katie endorsed Holt because she thought he wouldn't actually be a bad harbor master after all. Which, like,
I don't
really,
think that
this is a small town. He's not going to make any major fish legislation, right?
No.
He's probably a fine harbor master.
He's probably a great harbor master, but also I know how these towns work. Their differences are like basically like belief sets because
Yeah.
he's very opposed to just her being there in the first place. I mean that Fed threat that he always thought, but now that the threat's moved on, I'm
Some of
sure
his
it's
changes
fine.
are reasonable. Like, he makes you pass a quiz in order to be allowed out on the water. Is
He
like
really
one of the
does.
changes he wants to make.
He does. I do
Yeah.
give him credit. That is a cool thing that a harbor master should actually do,
Mm-hmm.
is make sure that people know. But we also have boating licenses in the state, so you can just take one of those bad boys, and it's very long. I have one. It's very long.
The other important thing is like the orca is being rehabbed at a wildlife center, and
Mm-hmm.
they think he'll rejoin a pod soon.
Day pod.
Yeah, what were you gonna say? Because you were freaking out.
Holt has you in that test. He has you collect a Dungeness crab off the
A male
beach,
Dungeness crab for you.
which is illegal if you don't have a crabbing license.
Listen,
Which is like you, and the thing is, listener, you actually have to go get a clamming license. But if you
Yeah,
know
see, that's the
anything
thing.
about clamming licenses, even in 2003, is that it's a shellfish license and it's for both crab and clams. And the fact that you go and collect the crabs before you have the
well,
clam.
maybe you actually got a shellfish. No, because you do the clams first.
Do you do the clams
I
first?
think so.
Are you sure? Or are you just were you putting that in there? To
No, I'm
shut
pretty
me
sure
up?
you do.
I'm not sure because
Well,
you go
maybe
and talk
you
to him
don't.
first.
I think maybe you're right.
And then she goes and Jenna then asks you to go get some clams
Yeah,
for
because
her.
you're trying to get the GPS from Holt, and you get that first.
My conspiracy is that Holt just has every amateur boats person or fisherman or whatever come and give him a free Dungeness crab.
Maybe he does.
And that's what his big plan is. He's just smuggling crab. He's got a freezer full of illegal crab, which is in Washington a huge crime. That is actually a big crime if you are illegally shellfishing. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of the game.
That's the game.
Yeah. I don't remember what happened. Like, Andy goes to jail, obviously. I don't
yeah.
think they really touch on what happened with Jenna.
Yeah, nothing.
So-
Literally do not. Oh, no. She changes the cafe to be more like talks about the history of the cafe.
Oh,
remember?
yeah. You find out the cafe was like the headquarters of that guy.
Of the Shanghai
Parker guy. Yeah. So anyway, it was a fun game. What do you think, Matt?
It was pleasant. It was fun. Like I said, for a game for children, not everyone was bad right off the bat. You would have probably never guessed I kept calling him Ben Stiller, but his name was Andy because he looked like Ben Stiller from the early 2000s to me. You would have never guessed that he was the bad guy right off the bat because there were so many people who had so many motives. But also, he was a good villain, and everyone had a little bit of gray to them. Even the only person who really didn't have it was the harbor master. He actually turned out to be like the most straightforward person in the entire game.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
He's not. He's what you get. You see exactly it, you get it.
He's just like, I'm an old cranky fisherman.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed playing it.
You understand why it has a little fan base behind it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not a big detective game player, but I do enjoy every now and again a good pulpy game, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of LA Noire, but not exactly because there's no real interrogations like that game.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's actually just like a super brief overview. There's not a whole lot of information about HeR out there. I would have to do some like first person.
We should go to
sourcing.
HeR campus just to see what's going on.
I'd have to do like in some first person interviews in order to get the big. There was one source that I will leave in the notes that was like pretty in depth about like it's called. I think it was titled "What's with the Disappearing Nancy Drew Games" or something similar. And that one talked a lot about actually like the layoffs and the process behind the game. So that was interesting if you are interested in learning a little bit more. It pretty much covered it today, but it goes a little bit more in depth if you are interested.
Video game production is a very interesting industry.
Yeah, and I really just wanted an excuse to talk about Nancy Drew Games a little bit.
I mean, who would have guessed it was a Washington brand?
They're fun, and this is. I also wanted a less research heavy topic because my last two of them have taken me, pages and pages and pages of notes. So this was a little bit easier,
awesome.
Not as dense.
I liked it, and it was good.
Yeah,
and I enjoyed doing the research for this because it was just playing a game.
Yeah, we played the game all the way through. It took us like 4 hours, and that's mostly because I knew some of the puzzles immediately, and I didn't have to like actually solve the puzzles, and I knew where to go and everything. So if it's your first time playing it, it might take you a little bit longer, but yeah, it's a good like short game. You know what? I think my next episode might be
what?
It might be Tulip Time.
Oh boy, it's Tulip Mania.
It's Tulip Time,
folks. It's Tulip Time. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, you're about to find out.
It might be. Well, this is a good thing I had my research less heavy topic today because I feel like the tulips are going to take it all.
The Tulip Festival is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Very excited. leave a like.
Oh yeah.
And a comment.
Yeah. Rate us on the podcast app of your choice. Share it with a friend, please.
Can't hurt.
Listen to our old episodes. Now we got a little bit of a backlog.
Yeah, we're on episode 9 now. So
you can listen to...
That's 9 hours worth of material.
Yeah, you can listen to me talk for an hour about Phoenix Jones, who is
that
a
was
superhero.
A good one.
You can hear me talk for an hour and then a bonus episode about bikini baristas.
That was also a good one. I really like that one.
Matt talk about the Supersonics. That was our last episode. And then you can, as a bonus in that episode, hear me try and name all the NBA teams I know. And I don't do well.
It's real rough. She knows the Pelicans.
I know the Pelicans. And I think that's it. I mean, we have more. If you haven't listened to them, go back and listen to them.
Give them a listen. Tell us what you think.
Oh, send us an email at whatthewashington@gmail.com if you feel like it.
We do take emails.
And you can send us a request of a topic.
We do request as well.
We haven't had one yet, but we will do it. Within reason.
Within reason. But very excited. Thank you. And hope to hear you, or hope to talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Whales rule!